They destroyed my $6 million lakefront dream home. No warning, no legal right. Just a forged document and a vendetta from a power-hungry HOA queen I never agreed to join. But they picked the wrong man to bully because I wasn't just going to rebuild. I was going to bring the whole empire down. When I first found the land, it didn't feel real. A sloping green peninsula wrapped in old oaks, sitting at the far end of a quiet lake in Virginia, tucked just out of sight from the uniform gated neighborhoods to the north. There was no paved road, no mailbox, no artificial landscaping, just gravel, trees, and open sky. The real estate agent had been confused as hell when I told her I wanted it. No utilities, no homeowners association, no neighbors. Just land? She'd asked, blinking. That's right, I told her. Just land. And it's perfect. That was 3 years ago. Over time, I turned that empty plot into everything I'd ever wanted. I didn't skimp. This was my dream home, and I built it to last. A 3-story modernist marvel of steel and glass with smart home systems, solar integration, and a cantilevered deck that hung over the lake like the prow of a ship. Floor-to-ceiling windows on the second floor caught the light at sunrise like the place was on fire. Inside, Brazilian hardwood, minimalist interior, a glass-walled study that looked out over the water. I had it all. The build cost just under $6 million. Every permit, every document, every code inspection. Flawless. I'd hired the best. The property was technically outside the limits of any municipal HOA. I triple-checked that before closing. The lot had once been part of a sprawling family estate that was subdivided decades ago, and this particular piece had remained independent ever since. No hidden dues, no sneaky covenants, no community bylaws. I had a copy of the original deed in a fireproof box in my closet. I had the surveyor's maps framed in my office. I knew where my land began and ended, and no one could tell me otherwise. For the first year, it was heaven. I worked remotely, coding and managing my software startup from the sunroom with a view of the lake. When the weather was good, I fished off my dock or took my kayak into the morning mist. Friends visited. I hosted barbecue nights. Everything was quiet, clean, mine. Then she showed up. I was cleaning the gutters when I first saw her. Blonde bob, crisp white blouse, clipboard in hand like she was born to ruin someone's Tuesday. She stood at the edge of my gravel drive just past the no trespassing sign with that look, like someone who's about to ask for your ID on your own land. "You must be the new homeowner," she called out, stepping closer without invitation. "Karen Sloan. I'm president of the Lakefront Preserve Homeowners Association." I wiped the sweat from my forehead. "I'm not part of your HOA." She laughed like I'd made a joke. "That's a common misconception. You're within our visual corridor. The lake frontage falls under the scenic easement agreement signed with the county. That makes your property subject to appearance compliance." "No," I said. "No, it doesn't. This lot's independent. It predates the preserve by decades." Karen's smile was tight and patient, like a kindergarten teacher explaining to a child why scissors aren't toys. "Sir, our bylaws clearly state that any structure visible from the community lake path must adhere to architectural standards. That includes glass reflectivity, non-neutral paint tones, and roofline compliance. I can give you a copy." "You can give me a break," I said, stepping down the ladder. "I'm not in your HOA. I don't owe you anything." She looked at her clipboard. "We've had several complaints. Residents are concerned about your building disrupting the aesthetic harmony of the lakeside." "From which residents?" I asked. "I don't have neighbors." Karen raised one eyebrow. "That's not quite true. Lakefront Preserve owns the community dock directly across from your house. You're highly visible from our west promenade." I stared at her for a long moment. She was dead serious. "You'll be receiving a letter," she said, turning on her heel. "We look forward to working with you on resolving these violations amicably." The letter came 2 days later by courier, in a thick white envelope sealed with the HOA's gold crest. Inside, a formal list of violations, a deadline for corrections, and a suggested fee schedule if I refuse to comply. $1,000 per week per violation. Suggested corrections included repainting my home's exterior to community-approved earth tones, replacing the metal roof with wood shake or simulated composite, and planting 3 approved species of tree along the waterfront. I called my attorney. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. "I'm serious," I said. "Yeah, so am I," he replied. "That's ridiculous. They have no jurisdiction. They're bluffing." That's what I thought too. I threw the letter in a drawer and went back to my life. That was my mistake. I assumed that would be the end of it. I thought people like Karen barked but didn't bite. I should have known better. 2 days after I crumpled that damn violation letter and shoved it in a drawer, a white SUV pulled up to the edge of my property just before dawn. I was drinking coffee in the kitchen when I saw it through the big lake-facing windows. Engine running, lights off, someone sitting inside with a phone pointed straight at my house. I stepped outside in my robe and waved. The SUV reversed and disappeared back up the county road. That afternoon, a second letter arrived. This one came by registered mail with a list of updated observations and a printed photo of my house taken that very morning. They'd annotated it like it was a military target. Red circles around the roofline, arrows pointing at my deck, a bold caption at the bottom that read, "Non-compliant silhouette." I called my lawyer again. "They've started surveillance," I said. "I'll draft a cease and desist," he replied. But before he could send it, things escalated. The next morning, a man in a yellow vest knocked on my door claiming to be with the county building inspection department. His clipboard looked freshly printed. His ID badge said temp clearance. He asked if he could walk around the property to check for possible non-permitted additions. "Hell no," I said. "You got a warrant?" He mumbled something about external sight lines and left, but not before snapping a few photos with his phone. I sent everything to my attorney. His response was immediate. "That guy doesn't work for the county I just called. No inspection scheduled for your address." I knew who sent him, and then came the contractor. 3 weeks earlier, I'd wrapped construction with a company called Alder & Chase. They were expensive but thorough, or so I thought. One morning, I got a call from a project manager named Wesley who'd overseen part of the build. "Hey, Mr. Marshall, I wanted to give you a heads up. Karen Sloan from the HOA's been reaching out to us. She asked for copies of your blueprints and permit filings." "She what?" "She said she's working with the county on a zoning compliance review. Said we'd be helping expedite it." "You gave her anything?" "No, sir. But I got to be honest. Some of the guys on the team are independent. They might have shared more than they should have." I thanked him and hung up. That same day, I got an anonymous package on my porch. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. On it, emails between someone on my contractor's team and a HOA board member. The messages were polite, overly formal, but the implications were toxic. Karen had convinced one of the project leads to correct the final build documents retroactively. They'd filed an addendum to the architectural summary suggesting that I had added a roof-level observation platform, not present in the original plan. Of course, I hadn't. It didn't exist. But the paperwork did. And if you knew how zoning boards worked, you'd understand that sometimes all it takes is bad paperwork to start a landslide. I forwarded everything to my attorney. "They're laying the groundwork for something," I said. "They're building a case against your house," he replied. "On paper." Meanwhile, things around the lake started to feel colder. People I'd chatted with on the docks now turned their backs. The guy who used to wave from his paddleboard stared straight ahead. One of the few nearby families who used to bring their kids to catch frogs on my shoreline stopped coming altogether. And then came the whisper campaign. Karen had begun sending out flyers, emails, even a bulletin to HOA members with the subject line: environmental concerns. Unapproved structure may endanger shoreline stability. She claimed my house disrupted natural drainage, that my glass walls reflected sunlight into nesting areas, that my deck created optical pollution. She claimed I'd illegally trimmed trees that were essential to the lake's micro-ecosystem, despite all landscaping being approved and supervised by certified environmental contractors. There were rumors I'd dumped waste into the lake, that I was some tech guy from out of state trying to build a private club. One day I found dog shit in my mailbox. Another day someone nailed a wooden sign to a tree near the dock. Preserve the lake. Stop the mansion. The next time I saw Karen, she was smiling. Getting a lot of community feedback, she said, walking along the road as I loaded groceries. People really care about what's happening here. You mean my legal property? She shrugged. We all have to think beyond ourselves. It's about stewardship. Did you send the fake inspector and the sign? I have no idea what you're talking about, she said sweetly. But I'd be careful. Ignoring community concerns rarely ends well. 2 days later, I received a new letter. This one claimed that due to ongoing violations and non-cooperative behavior, the HOA was moving forward with a formal legal complaint for code violations, encroachment on community visual space, and unauthorized modifications to shoreline property. 3 alleged violations, $1,000 each, per day. Retroactively counted since the house passed inspection, almost 4 months back. They were trying to bleed me. I held the letter in my hand and watched the sun sink over the lake, pouring orange light across the glass panels of my home. I wasn't scared yet, but I was pissed. The legal notices kept coming. The envelopes got thicker. The wording got bolder. My lawyer kept telling me to ignore it, that it was all smoke with no jurisdictional fire. But every time I drove down the winding lake road, someone new was standing near the community dock, staring at my house like it was a tumor that needed removing. After a week of relentless letters and fake inspectors, Karen switched tactics. She became nice. I woke up one morning to find muffins on my porch. A handwritten card sat beside them in perfect swirling cursive. Let's talk. We can make this go away. KS. For the record, the muffins tasted like betrayal. That afternoon, she appeared at my drive just as I got back from town. She didn't have her clipboard. No army of printed bylaws. Just a soft smile and a woven tote bag like we were neighbors borrowing sugar. Nicholas, she said, using my full name like we were in couples counseling. I think we got off on the wrong foot. You've sent fake inspectors to my house. She waved a hand, laughing lightly. Miscommunications. Overeager volunteers. You know how committees get. But I'm here to give you a clean slate. She pulled a set of papers from her tote bag and held them out. Let's work together. You join the HOA as a special exception homeowner. Reduced dues, priority voting rights, full architectural approval retroactively. And we'll consider all violations resolved. No fines, no litigation. I didn't take the papers. You want me to pay you, I said, to exist on my own land. She tilted her head sympathetically. You're paying for peace, Nicholas, not compliance. She tapped the stack of papers. One signature. You'll be grandfathered in. No more complaints. No more letters. No more tension with the community. That last part landed like a hook, because I was tired of the letters, the flyers, the neighbors looking at me like I'd kicked a swan. How much? I asked, hating myself for even saying it. She gave a soft, triumphant smile. A one-time community contribution of $75,000. After that, annual dues of $2,000. Peanuts compared to the cost of defending yourself in litigation. Karen knew exactly where to press. I resented how calm she looked, how sure she was that I'd cave. I didn't sign anything right then. My lawyer had drilled that into me, but I told her I would review it. Her smile sharpened at the edges. I knew you'd be reasonable. That night, I spent hours staring at the papers spread across my desk. They were full of legal jargon, architectural compliance, community beautification, view easement acknowledgement. Nothing jumped out as malicious. Nothing obvious. Maybe I was just being stubborn. Maybe buying peace was worth the price. Around midnight, headlights swept across my office wall. Someone stopped at the edge of my driveway. I killed the lights and approached the door quietly. A car idled near my no trespassing sign. Then something slid out of the driver's side window and hit the gravel. I waited until the vehicle left. In the driveway lay a large envelope, no markings, sealed with clear tape. Inside was a stack of documents stamped and dated. The top page read, "Residential structure, planned demolition. Requested by Lakefront Preserve HOA." My heart thudded once, hard. They had already scheduled the demolition, requested county equipment, labeled my house as non-compliant structure within community easement. The date was 7 days out, 7, and stapled to the back, a draft press release from the HOA communications team. Community successfully removes illegal structure. My hands shook, because there, attached to the demolition packet, was a copy of the agreement Karen wanted me to sign. Same header, same formatting. But on that version, one clause was highlighted. Owner voluntarily acknowledges the existence of view easement and agrees to cooperate with corrective action, including removal of unapproved structure if necessary. Corrective action, not compliance, removal. If I had signed her peace agreement, I would have authorized them to destroy my home and I wouldn't have been able to stop it. I took pictures of every document. Then I called my lawyer, no matter that it was nearly midnight. He picked up on the second ring. "This better be urgent." "Oh, it's urgent," I said. "She's planning to demolish my house." There was silence on the other end. Then, "Don't sign anything. Don't speak to her again. From now on, everything goes through me." I closed the folder and looked around at my home. Every window, every beam, every piece of it I had built with my own hands. Peace wasn't what Karen wanted. She wanted possession, and she'd almost tricked me into giving it to her. 2 days after the demolition documents landed on my doorstep, the lake stopped being quiet. It began with kayaks. Early Saturday morning, I looked out from my bedroom and counted at least a dozen of them floating just offshore, clustered in front of my dock like ducklings in formation. Most had handmade signs mounted on little poles flapping lazily in the breeze. "Protect the shoreline." "Say no to illegal mansions." "Stop eco-violators." I didn't recognize a single face, but they were all filming. Phones pointed at my house like I was some creature caught in the wild committing crimes against nature. One woman with purple sunglasses held a loudspeaker and yelled, "We're here to defend the lake from unapproved destruction." Destruction? I hadn't even flushed a toilet that morning. I stepped onto the deck and called out, "You people know this is private property, right?" A guy with a man bun and a GoPro shouted back, "We're on navigable water. We're allowed to protest. You don't own the view, bro." The flotilla stayed there for 2 hours. Later that day, someone spray-painted "Your Lake Rapist" on my mailbox. I pressure-washed it off, then sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. An email had come in, blast format, addressed to all HOA members and forwarded around the local Facebook group. Subject: Community update. Environmental concerns and pending legal action. Body. Our neighborhood is currently threatened by an unapproved, non-compliant structure built without consideration for shoreline erosion, migratory bird paths, or reflective light ordinances. The HOA is pursuing responsible corrective measures. We encourage all residents to express their concern peacefully but firmly. Attached. Photos of my house taken from God knows where, with red circles around architectural features like they were military targets. One caption read, "Evidence of altered slope grade, likely illegal fill dirt." I had done no such thing. The comments section below the email was open. People chimed in, righteous and anonymous. Disgusting. The lake used to be peaceful. He doesn't even live here full time. Outsiders ruining everything. That deck looks like it could crush turtles. Can we just sue this guy already? Then came the video. It hit social media the next morning. A slick, overly dramatic, obviously staged clip of a concerned community member narrating over drone footage of my property. "In the heart of Lakefront Preserve," the voiceover began, "one man has chosen profit over preservation." It showed slow pans of my house cut against clips of birds, fish, fog rolling over water. Then a wide shot of my glass deck with ominous music. "It reflects so much light," a woman said in an interview clip, "that my daughter got sunburned just looking at it." I nearly punched a hole in my monitor. Karen had gone full propaganda, but the worst was the children. The next day, a group of moms, at least 5 of them, led a lakeside nature walk with kids holding signs. "Save our frogs." And we're no mansion. Happy herons. They marched right past my property line, took photos and posed in front of my dock like I was a zoo exhibit. One of the kids taped a flyer to my gate. "Stop hurting the lake. Move your house." It was drawn in crayon. That evening I met with Maya, my attorney, at her office downtown. She'd been watching the online chatter all week and she didn't look amused. "This isn't just slander," she said, sliding a file toward me. "It's strategy. She's trying to weaponize public opinion to justify action before we can shut it down legally." She showed me new paperwork Karen had submitted to the county planning board. It was a public nuisance petition signed by over 100 residents, demanding an emergency review of my property for environmental compliance and safety. "That's not even a real legal mechanism," I said. "It doesn't have to be," Maya replied. "It just needs to create enough smoke that the fire inspectors come sniffing." I slumped back in my chair. "I built this place by the book," I said. "Every inch of it, every screw, every inspection." Maya leaned forward. "You did, but she's not trying to prove you broke the law. She's trying to make it look like you did until someone panics and reacts." Outside her office, the sun was going down over the courthouse lawn. "She wants to demolish your house," Maya said, "and she wants a cheering crowd when it happens." I was in town for exactly 90 minutes. Groceries, gas, a quick stop at the hardware store to pick up floodlights for the dock. I turned my phone off for maybe half that time. When I powered it back on, I had 9 missed calls. 3 were from Maya. The rest were from unknown numbers. The first voicemail made my heart drop into my stomach. "Nick, it's Tom from across the lake. You need to get back right now. There's a crew tearing something off your house. I think they're trying to take your deck apart." I ran to my truck. By the time I rounded the bend on East Peninsula Drive, I saw them. 3 men in construction vests, a flatbed truck with a skid steer parked beside it, and on 2 full pallets of building debris. Already loaded up. My glass panels, those huge curved sheets that framed the entire lake view, were shattered on the gravel. My lower deck was gone, ripped clean off, joists cracked, stairs dangling. The shoreline was littered with splintered wood and broken fasteners. A section of my cedar facade had been torn down to the studs. I slammed the truck into park, jumped out, and screamed, "What the hell are you doing?" One of the men turned, clipboard in hand. "You're the homeowner?" "No, I'm the delivery guy. Of course I'm the homeowner." He held out the clipboard, unsure now. "We've got an abatement order, structure flagged as non-compliant by the HOA. Says here it was approved by legal counsel. We were told to begin removal." I grabbed the clipboard. No seal, no county insignia. Just a letterhead from Lakefront Preserve Beautification Committee, signed by Karen Sloan, and notarized by someone whose license had expired 2 years ago. I called Maya. I don't even remember what I shouted. She just said, "Get them off your land. Now. Call the sheriff." I did. Deputies arrived within 15 minutes, but by then the damage was already done. One wall was stripped to its insulation. They dug around the deck footings. Half the landscaping was ruined. One of my outdoor speakers had been crushed under a wheel. The sheriff's deputies questioned the crew, who admitted they'd been hired through a third-party contractor and paid in advance by wire transfer from a community development account. They thought it was legit. I showed them the fake documents. They started writing up a report. I stood in the wreckage, surrounded by shards of tempered glass and snapped redwood beams, shaking with rage. Not fear, not confusion, just rage. Karen hadn't waited for a ruling. She'd bypassed the courts, skipped the bureaucracy, and gone straight to Audi construction by deception. She meant to destroy my home. Later that day, Maya confirmed the worst. "That stunt just made your case 10 times stronger, but also 10 times messier. This isn't just legal harassment anymore, it's property crime." We filed a restraining order the next morning. Not just against Karen, but against the HOA itself. And then we escalated. Maya subpoenaed their bank records. We filed formal charges for no trespass, destruction of private property, and impersonation of county authority. And we went public. I released the footage from my driveway cameras, high-res video of the crew tearing into the house, of them casually loading materials like they were cleaning up after a barbecue. I uploaded it with the caption, "They tried to demolish my home, on fake authority, with forged paperwork. This is what your HOA looks like when no one stops them." The video went viral in under 24 hours. News outlets picked it up. The HOA tried to respond with a press statement, but public sentiment had already turned. People weren't just outraged, they were terrified. If it could happen to me, a private homeowner with a legally built home, it could happen to anyone. The county launched an investigation, and I started digging. Maya and I found more than we'd bargained for. Misused funds, backroom contracts, HOA board members who'd profited quietly from compliance consulting, including Karen herself. But the worst piece? The blueprint. We discovered a photoshopped architectural diagram with my signature forged at the bottom, approving the removal of non-compliant structures. The same one the demo crew had used. That changed everything. Because now we weren't talking about harassment. We were talking about a criminal fraud. The hardest part wasn't the broken glass or the exposed framing. It was waking up the next morning, walking outside barefoot with a cup of coffee like it was any other day, and seeing the scars on my house. The deck, my favorite place on earth, ripped apart like it never belonged. The insulation flapping in the wind, the metal fasteners glinting in the dirt like surgical staples after a botched operation. They didn't just damage the house, they damaged me. And now it was time to return the favor. Maya came over that morning, still in jeans and a windbreaker, no briefcase, just her phone and a grim expression. "We're going scorched earth," she said, stepping over a pile of crushed lumber. She committed felony fraud. We go full offensive. We didn't need much. The evidence was now stacked higher than my ruined deck. We had security footage of the unauthorized crew, the fake abatement order, a notarization by someone with an expired license, financial records showing HOA payments to the contractor, and the crown jewel, a forged blueprint with my signature. Karen hadn't just tried to bend the rules. She'd created new ones out of thin air, printed them, signed them with my name, and ordered destruction. That blueprint was the nail in the coffin. Maya filed an emergency complaint with the district attorney's office, citing fraud, forgery, unlawful destruction of private property, and conspiracy. The response was immediate. Within 48 hours, Karen Sloan received a notice of criminal investigation from the Mabarninum County Fraud and Records Bureau. But we weren't done, because I still had the lien. Remember the $21,000 of unpaid HOA contractor debt I had quietly purchased? It gave me standing, the legal right to demand a full forensic audit of HOA finances. Maya drafted the motion and sent it in with a smirk on her face. 3 days later, the court granted the audit request. That's when we found the rot. Dozens of invoices paid to consultants with no business registration. Payments to a legal strategist who turned out to be Karen's cousin. 5-figure transactions to community engagement media, which matched dates for the anti-me smear campaign videos. It was a money laundering scheme, disguised as beautification. Maya handed the whole package to the county inspector general's office. Meanwhile, I got a call from Wesley, the contractor I'd worked with originally. He was rattled. She used my name on the demo order, he said. My old firm's logo is on that forged document. I didn't authorize any of it. I told him to meet me. We sat down at a diner. This time he came with receipts, literal email threads between him and Karen where she had asked for quiet assistance modifying dated plans, offered him a consulting fee for minor paperwork help, then sent him a PDF to review, which turned out to be the fake blueprint. He refused to sign. She sent it anyway. That made him a tzadun material witness. Maya added it to our growing dossier and sent a formal deposition request. The district attorney called us the next day. They were preparing charges, multiple counts, felonies. Karen, once the HOA's iron-fisted queen, now stood me accused of forging official documents, ordering unlawful demolition, falsifying a signature, and knowingly authorizing construction activity under false pretenses. Her lawyer issued a vague denial. The HOA board went silent. Then came the domino effect. One by one, board members resigned. The HOA's bank accounts were frozen pending the criminal investigation. A judge issued a cease and desist order on all HOA enforcement activity, citing a credible pattern of abuse of authority and systemic fraud. And just like that, the empire cracked. But what made it all click into place was the public response. The video of the partial demolition kept circulating, but now it was accompanied by headlines like, Lakefront HOA president facing felony charges after demolition scandal. Homeowners' property destroyed in HOA power play gone wrong. Karen became the cautionary tale. Reporters camped outside her gated driveway. HOA watchdog forums lit up with discussions of her downfall. People started sending me emails, not just neighbors, but strangers. Former victims of HOAs, lawyers, journalists. Someone even mailed me a cake with U1 in blue frosting. We weren't quite done yet. The court date was set, the trial still ahead, but for the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. The house was wounded, yes, but I wasn't broken. And neither was the truth. You don't really prepare yourself to hear a prison sentence read aloud in a courtroom. You think justice will feel like victory. like music swelling and the room erupting in cheers. But when it finally happened, it felt quiet, heavy, final. Rebecca Sloan, you are hereby sentenced to 3 years in state custody with eligibility for parole after 18 months. No gasps, no applause, just silence except for the distant hum of the air vents and the quiet click of my jaw unclenching. Karen didn't speak. She just stood there, rigid, as if the words hadn't registered. The judge's gavel tapped once, sharp and fast, and that was it. The woman who'd tried to erase my house from the earth was going to prison, not for revenge, not because I wanted it, but because she earned it. The charges had stacked high: forgery of official documents, criminal impersonation, unlawful destruction of private property, conspiracy to commit fraud, the forged blueprint with my signature. That was the nail in the coffin. Even her own board members turned on her in the end, cutting deals to avoid prosecution. And Wesley's testimony, combined with Maya's airtight presentation, left no room for doubt. The court awarded me full damages. $6 million kroner for the value of the house and destroyed components, plus $900,000 in punitive and compensatory damages. Karen was ordered to pay personally, alongside the now bankrupt HOA. Lakefront Preserve HOA was officially dissolved. Its assets, including that fancy gated entrance and the little clubhouse where Karen once gave speeches, were seized and auctioned off. I heard the front gate was sold to a scrapyard. Poetic, really. The state's attorney announced a task force to investigate abuse of power in residential associations, citing my case as a catalyst. HOA reform forums lit up with discussions. They even asked me to speak at a symposium on homeowner rights. I declined. I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted my home back. And eventually, I got it. It took 8 months to fully restore the damage, rebuilt the deck, reinforced the frame, replaced every shattered panel with newer, stronger glass. This time, with steel anchor points and hidden cameras tucked into the corners. I didn't want anyone sneaking up on me again. The house was quieter now, stronger, better. I didn't invite anyone over for the first month. I just sat alone some evenings on the rebuilt deck, bourbon in hand, feet up, letting the lake light settle in the waves like spilled gold. Then one day Maya texted me, "Turn on Channel 4. I did. It was Karen, orange jumpsuit, shackled hands, being walked into state custody. A reporter called her the face of HOA corruption. Another called her Queen of the Lake, finally dethroned. I didn't feel joy. Just a strange, full silence. A week later, I held a barbecue. The guest list was small. Maya, Wesley, Tom from across the lake, and a few neighbors who'd stuck around after the firestorm. We grilled, laughed, drank, talked about things other than lawsuits. Someone asked me what I planned to do now. "Same as always," I said. "Watch the water, mind my business." They laughed, and just before sundown, someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was a county commissioner, young, fresh-faced, full of fire. He handed me a framed certificate. "In recognition of your courage, persistence, and defense of individual property rights under unlawful threat, the County of Montgomery honors you as a citizen advocate." I didn't expect it, didn't know what to say, but I shook his hand and said thanks. I'll hang it somewhere no one can mess with. That night, after everyone left, I went down to the dock. The moon was low, the lake was still, and for the first time since the first knock on my door, I felt it. Not just peace, but permanence. This house was mine, my land, my silence, and no one would take it from me again.